What's up, everybody? Welcome into the 24/7 Sports channel. The portal is slowing down, but we still got some big game hunting going on. To help us with all the latest, we are going to bring in the czar of the transfer portal, as I like to call him, Travis Branham. Welcome into the show. So, Travis, let's get into it real quick. We saw Cedric Coward, just as you projected last week on the show. He did, in fact, commit to Duke. I think this is absolutely huge news for the Blue Devils. They get the wing they needed. But what are your thoughts on this commitment?
Yeah, massive addition. Duke needed another guy on the perimeter, especially with age and experience, to really push for another Final Four run next year. And Cedric Howard, honestly, had he not gotten injured this season, I think there's a good chance would be hearing his name called in the first round of this year's NBA draft. He's a 6'6", long, skilled wing slash guard, a guy with just a great feel for the game. While he can make shot, while he is a good shooter both off the catch and pull on the perimeter, he can also be relied on to put the ball in his hands, make decisions. As you can see, he's a good passer, both on the dribble and just as a facilitator. So just another versatile piece with size and length, just as we have become accustomed to seeing with John Shire's lineups.
Yeah, I think we are going to see another big team next year at Duke with Coward at the 3 next to Cam Boozer and, of course, the 2 returners at the center position. Let's talk a little bit about Derrion Reid to Oklahoma, because while he was not in the top 25 of your updated rankings, he was once a top 25 recruit just over a year ago, and I think there's a big chance for him to revitalize his career after a somewhat disappointing freshman season at Alabama, which got off to a rough start with a couple of nagging injuries. But what are your impressions of this fit with Reid going to Oklahoma?
Yeah, he's just a terrific talent. 6'8", long, athletic forward that can just impact the game in a variety of ways. And he's coming in alongside 2 dynamic guards in Nigel Pack out of Miami and Xavier Brown out of St. Joseph. So there's 2 dynamic guards on the perimeter that I think will space the floor and really allow Derrion Reid to really focus on the things that he does best as a rebounder, as a cutter, a finisher at the rim, and getting out in transition. I think we could see the best version of Derrion Reid that we didn't fully get to see this year at Alabama.
I'll say this. I think durability is a key factor, and it's got to begin now. He missed most of the summer at Alabama last year. LeBaron Filan had already separated himself by the time Reid got on the floor. He cannot afford to get off to a late head start again this year at Oklahoma. Let's go to some of the uncommitted guys, and specifically some of the uncommitted guys that entered the portal in just the final hours. Let's start with Claude at USC. We've seen the Must Bus get some major impact transfers in recent days, but what are the chances that Claude goes back there to join them? And if not, where might he be looking?
I would say the chances of him ending back up with USC is basically 0% at this point. While it was reported he was considering a return, I just don't believe that will be the case here at all. He is taking a visit to Florida this week, beginning on Thursday. And Florida is frankly the team to beat. When Denzel Aberdeen hit the portal, things really opened, and Florida and Todd Golden are in big need of an impact guard, and Desmond Claude absolutely fits that bill. It sounds to be some heavy mutual interest in this pairing. And so, to me, heading into the weekend, Florida is absolutely the team to watch. But there's also been discussions of teams like Ole Miss, North Carolina, Kansas, BYU, and some others to have expressed some interest in them. But again, I think they're all taking a backseat to the Gators.
Des Claude, of course, a big physical guard, 6'6", strong body, just a walking mismatch on the perimeter who does stuff all columns of the stat sheet. It was really important to him early on in his career that he play more with the ball in his hands, but I think his best asset is the on-off ball versatility. Would be interesting to see how he fits in any of those places. Another guy who was late into the portal, and that's from Louisville. It was a little bit of a surprise because Louisville thought they had, correct me if I'm wrong, but they thought they had kind of finished off what looked like a tremendous class. And then James Scott, someone who came with them from the College of Charleston, goes into the portal. What do we know about what he is thinking now?
Yeah, the moment he hit the portal, the team that immediately kind of emerged as a top contender is NC State. It's back home for James Scott in the state of North Carolina. And there's a big need, obviously, for Will Wade as he is rebuilding this program. And so for the past week, since this portal is closed, that has been the team I've been watching the closest. Now, a return to Louisville has not been ruled completely off the table here, and I do know that other schools have been trying to get involved and kind of muddy the waters with this one, but I still like Will Wade's chances.
And you see the numbers there. Scott, an athletic big, not just a vertical spacer. You see the dunk numbers, but I think one of his best attributes is his mobility on the defensive end of the floor. He offers you quite a bit of versatility and switchability, depending on where you play him at the 5 and the 4 and how you guard ball screens, but certainly a defensive asset as well. One other guy that I wanted to talk about is Boogie Fland. When we were doing that show last Tuesday, I had kind of said that he was the player that I had my eyes on the most. He did, in fact, hit the portal. I'm told that he's still focused on the NBA draft, but he's got a very interesting decision in front of him because I do think there's a chance he's a first-round pick, but I also think it's going to be pretty close in terms of his earning potential exceeding what he would get in the NBA by returning to college. So going to be very, very interesting. You and I have talked about this, but the things that I was most impressed with this year in terms of Boogie's game before the injury were, one, the level of burst he played with. I thought there was a newfound explosiveness that we did not see in high school. He was able to put more pressure on the rim. He was also able to play as more of a point guard. Those assist to turnover numbers were very impressive. And I thought even defensively, there were flashes of him being able to pick up full court and really pressure opposing ball handlers. Not necessarily able to sustain that, but certainly flashes. So his choice coming up, I think, is one of the more interesting ones. Trav, let's turn our attention to some of the high school guys, because one of the things we have seen is as the portal commitments start to shake out, some of these high school players who've been committed since the fall have reopened their recruitment. We've seen a number of them already come off the board, including in recent days. Niko Bundalo is back on the board, announcing his decommitment from Washington on Tuesday afternoon. What do we know about what this McDonald's All-American may be thinking at this point?
Yeah, this has been one that's been rumored for the past couple of weeks. And yeah, the news broke on Tuesday afternoon that he is reopening his recruitment. And I've been told that there are two schools to watch with this one, and those are St. John's and Kansas State. So this is early right now, but currently, based on everything that I have gathered, I am personally liking Kansas State's odds.
Now, this is not the only high school player that St. John's is in the mix for, and we will get to that in a minute. It's just a little bit ironic since they were not recruiting high school players, but I digress. Let's talk about Acaden Lewis. You had an update on him last week, but it sounds like he has narrowed down his options in the 7 days since we went live. One of the top lead guards in the country. What is the very latest on him?
Yeah, this thing came down to just 4 schools, St. John's being one of them. He took his first visit to them after reopening his recruitment. Then he went to Villanova, Georgia, and then finished up at Miami. And about this time last week, this recruitment was basically all but sewn up for the Georgia Bulldogs. But Lewis had a bit of a twist and turn with his recruitment by deciding to take a visit to Miami late into the weekend. And when he decided to do that, things really opened up. Georgia pivoted, took a couple of guards out of the transfer portal, as we saw yesterday on Monday afternoon. And so now this recruitment, I'm told, is really down to Villanova and Miami at this point. And you're talking about 2 completely different situations. Obviously, Villanova in the midst of a complete rebuild, and there's a massive need for a guy like Acaden Lewis on that roster for Kevin Willard. Whereas, obviously, yes, Jay Lucas, new head coach at Miami, but his rebuild began weeks and weeks ago, and he has done a terrific job with his roster down there. And he already has a pretty stacked backcourt. So Acaden Lewis will be going in and having to fight for his opportunity and minutes for that one. So very a situation that we have to monitor very closely.
I think it's also important to note that one of Acaden Lewis's original finalists before he committed to Kentucky was Duke, where Jay Lucas was previously on staff. So he's got some deeper inroads than just the last couple of weeks. Speaking of Duke, Braydon Hawthorne, who I know you have been a huge advocate of over the years, not somebody who's necessarily gotten as many eyeballs on him during the course of his senior season, but you couldn't be higher on his upside, and now he's starting to get the blue blood recruitment to prove it. Tell us about the latest with him.
Yeah, so after he reopened his recruitment from West Virginia following Darren DeVries's hiring at Indiana, this thing has really taken off. You're talking about a 6'8", 6'9" forward with a 7'3" wingspan, and teams like Kentucky. The new West Virginia staff is also showing interest. Virginia Tech is the team to monitor as they hired his previous primary lead recruiter in Chester Frazier. And again, the Blue Bloods are now calling with Kentucky. He took a visit there, is taking a visit to Duke this weekend. And actually today, on Tuesday, he is also visiting Pittsburgh. So this thing is continuing to take off. There's a lot of schools in the mix here. But I do think that we should have an answer out of this one in the next week or two.
One more top 100 prospect that is back on the board, another former West Virginia commit. That is Kelvin Odih. It sounds like his recruitment, too, is now starting to wind up. What is the latest on Odih?
Yeah, so upon reopening his recruitment, also from West Virginia, Odih took a couple of visits, and I do think that this one will be winding down fairly soon. Team I'm liking the most right now, and their chances are, of course, Rick Pitino and the St. John's Red Storm, as they have just completely torn up the recruiting trail, both in the portal and now potentially with the high school ranks this offseason.
You know, it's going to be really interesting to me. I know Pitino said he wasn't going to take a high school player, but Odih is not the typical high school player. He's far more physically mature. He's bigger. He's stronger. The motor's already been ingrained in there. He's a fifth-year player. I think he is one of the high school players that could come in and make an immediate impact because he can defend. He's an outstanding perimeter rebounder. And I think he would really benefit from the daily skill development work that Pitino has always been known for over the decades. I think that could help bring his game to new levels. So it would be very interesting to see if that does come to fruition and Odih does end up with the Johnnies. All right, for lots more of Trav's work and to stay up on the latest in the portal, all the extensive recruiting rankings, wall-to-wall team coverage, you can get it all, 247sports.com. Also, we will be here every Tuesday throughout the offseason. Showtime is 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, and so we will see you next Tuesday.